And now we turn back to guns in America and we look at the politics. Joining me is former U.S. Representative Carlos Curbelo. He is a Republican who represented Florida for 4 years until 2018. Congressman Curbelo, thank you very much for joining us. I want to ask you first why you are speaking out on this issue. You did serve in Congress. You were defeated last November by someone else who had a stronger record on gun control, if you will, a woman whose father had been killed in a gun accident, in a gun incident. So what has compelled you to continue to speak out about it?
Judy, good evening. For me, this issue stopped being a partisan issue a long time ago. While I was in Congress, we had the Pulse shooting in Orlando, Florida, and after that, I joined with Seth Moulton, a Democrat from Massachusetts, to introduce a version of the no-fly, no-buy legislation, which could have prevented that tragedy had it been in place before then. Then, of course, we had the horrible massacre in Las Vegas, and again, came together with Democrats to try to get a bipartisan solution. Universal background checks, 72-hour waiting periods, raising the minimum age to 21 for all gun purchases, red flag laws. These are common sense solutions that will save lives in our country. And mental health is a major challenge, but mental health cannot be used as an excuse to refuse to act on gun reform.
And in fact, we've just heard Amna Nawaz, my colleague, interviewing a psychiatrist at Duke University who says all the research shows that most gun violence is not committed by people who are mentally ill. But I want to drill down on what kind of legislation, what changes can be made practically in this current political environment. What can happen, do you think?
Well, in the wake of this horrible tragedy, we have seen some Republicans come out strongly in favor of red flag laws. Senator Lindsey Graham, who chairs the Senate Judiciary Committee, is prepared to move that legislation. We've also seen some House Republicans join the legislation that would require universal background checks. It would close all of the loopholes when it comes to universal background checks.
But right now,
this is a good sign. The question, Judy, is whether Republican leadership, specifically in the Senate, will allow this legislation to move forward. When I was in the House, we worked hard. We tried to convince leadership to allow this legislation to come to the floor, and they didn't.
But again, my colleague Lisa Desjardins reported just a few minutes ago that right now the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, is saying he's not going to put that background check legislation on the floor, ostensibly because he says President Trump would veto it, wouldn't support it. So what is it that's holding back the president? What's holding back other Republicans?
Well, the president in his remarks did say that he was in favor of stronger background checks, so the White House will have to explain why he would veto universal background check legislation. I can tell you this, Judy, last November, a lot of Republicans lost because of this issue, especially in suburban America. Voters are losing their patience. They want to see action on gun reform. They understand it's a constitutional right. They don't want to confiscate anyone's guns. They just want laws that keep guns out of the hands of dangerous people. That's reasonable. It's common sense. And if Senator McConnell wants to keep his majority, he should really consider allowing some of this legislation to move forward.
If that's the case, though, Congressman Curbelo, why do we not hear from more Republican members who say they're changing their minds? They're prepared to vote on this.
Well, we have seen some statements recently, Judy, but the reason why a lot of members of Congress don't act or don't compromise or don't move towards the center is because they fear a primary challenge. And without question, this is a potent issue in Republican primaries. The NRA is a very powerful organization. But what I can tell a lot of my former Republican colleagues, many of who are my friends, is that there are other organizations out there, like Everytown USA, for example, that are willing to come out in support of Republicans that take a reasonable approach to gun reform, that support some of these obvious measures that do not not diminish Second Amendment rights, but do keep innocent people safer.
Is there something about the way the arguments are being made that you think could be shifted, could be changed, that would bring more current opponents on board?
I think, unfortunately, it's going to take political pressure, and we've already seen some Republicans reacting, colleagues who, when I was in Congress, wouldn't even consider universal background check legislation or red flag legislation. Some of these members of Congress have made strong statements in the wake of this tragedy, and hopefully those statements will turn into votes, and we can heal on this issue. We can start taking steps to solve this issue. And by the way, Judy, it's not just for the sake of gun reform. The American people want to see their Congress work and compromise and find common ground. If we get a compromise on gun reform, that will help start to restore a lot of the trust and confidence that Americans have lost in Congress and in government more broadly.
Former Congressman Carlos Curbelo of Florida, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Judy.